Alright, hello everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Sapphisticated Discussions, a name recommended to me by Ennui on Me. This is my book discussion series of vlogs. It could become a podcast, it could become a book clubby thing, who knows? Viewer reception will determine how this works. But I have been reading again, which is great. However, I am a slave to reception, a slave to making lists and discussing things at this point. So I figured if I make vlogs about it, A, we can get some good discussions going, get some good conversations about the books I read, and hopefully you, the audience, also reads. And B, it makes it easier to justify it to my broken brain that needs everything to count as work. So, for this first episode, we are discussing Hayao Miyazaki's Starting Point. Now, it's worth pointing out that I will be reading 2 books at any given point, and whenever I finish a book, I will make a vlog, or, whatever it ends up being about it. Until now, I was reading this book, Starting Point, as well as Michel Foucault's Discipline and Punish, which I'm still reading, and which will get a video when I am done with it, which could be like a week or more, since I tend to alternate between like a chapter of one book and then a chapter of the other to keep my mind fresh, and I frankly only have time to read a chapter of one book a day, generally speaking, given my schedule with school and all. Anyways, without further ado, let's discuss this book. So, I, first of all, as a bit of backstory, am not in any way a massive fan of Miyazaki. I had not watched any Miyazaki anime to completion until 2017. And I think 2017, might have been late 2016, but I'm pretty sure it was 2017. And I did not start going in on watching most of his anime until this year. I'd seen half of Mononoke twice, but I'd never completed it till this year. Hadn't seen Nausicaa, hadn't seen any of them, really, other than Totoro, Kiki, and Spirited Away, until very recently. So, I didn't come into this as a massive Miyazaki fan or anything. I definitely appreciate his work now, especially given that I've been watching his other works more recently, but I'm hardly a Miyazaki stan in any sense. However, I am, as you might guess, doing some projects on him. Anything I read will probably in some way be related either to just improving myself as a critic, and by understanding other ideologies or something, or directly related to a project I am working on, of which there are many. It's itching my nose. I apologize for this. Anyway, so I decided to read this because A, it gives me a lot of personal first-hand information on Miyazaki, and B, it gives personal first-hand information on a worker in the anime industry, which you can get snippets of, obviously, especially nowadays, where it's a lot easier with the implementation of social media, but a full book on that is not common. There's very little in the way of full books written by people in the anime industry that are translated to English. Obviously, there's actually a decent number in Japanese, but very, 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 very few have been translated, and this is one of them. Perhaps because Miyazaki has been a bit unfairly privileged in his popularity in the West. But, putting that aside, let's discuss the actual contents of the book. So, this book is divided into sections, and if I look at it real quick, I'll see they're based on sections such as on creating animation, on the periphery of the work, people, my favorite things, planning notes, and actual discussion of his works. So, I think this is a setup that has a lot of merit. In portraying different essays chronologically in each section, you get a sense of how his thinking has developed over time. Funnily enough, I was kind of expecting him to be a bit less grouchy in the 70s and 80s. Not really true. He clearly had problems with anime from the start, so I don't think it's really reasonable to say that Miyazaki thinks anime has gotten bad when he's not too fond of Tezuka's early work either. But what struck me the most about this is not that Miyazaki is, broadly speaking, right about almost anything. Well, about most things he says. I disagree very strongly. For instance, Miyazaki is quite opposed to many of the techniques and stylistic tropes, I suppose you could call them, that make anime so popular among otaku. I mean, the guy is not a fan of limited animation, obviously, but I don't think that's required. However, to really get the feel of being anime. But what is required, I think, is a lot of the stylistic techniques that came from being limited animation, even though they can remain afterwards. The way characters are drawn and stuff, he does not have a huge fondness for, and obviously, most anime fans, including probably most people who watch this video, do like that kind of character design. I am, after all, a massive defender of moe. In this book, he was not criticizing moe, as that was not really a concept that existed yet, but he certainly criticized some precursors to that idea. And he also has some gripes with other techniques. He's very opposed to portraying things too darkly. His politics obviously disagree with mine, and especially as time has gone on, and his politics have changed. A lot of what he says about environmentalism, kind of weird. A lot of what he says about what makes Japanese people unique, kind of weird. But I think it's all very interesting and definitely gives a lot of context to his works. So, for instance, to flip to one of my many bookmarks I made, yes, his anti-war principles, for instance, are kind of oddly displayed, but I think it's in a way that really characterizes his works. He says at one point that in his politics, he's become more focused on whether or not a politician is a good person. Oops, there we go. Than on whether or not they agree with his principles. He seems to almost abandon ideology, which is interesting. And in doing so, his anti-war ideals are certainly present. He certainly is not a fan of war, and he certainly is a fan of the environment. But he never really... Why are you laughing, honey?
I'm reading through my interview from Mason.
Why aren't you working?
I thought of it, and I wanted to revisit memory lane.
Okay, I apologize for that. Anyways, his anti-war environmentalist ideals are never exactly put forth in a normal political sense. It's never that, it's important to remember to keep the environment safe the way a normal environmentalist would. It's more like he has a focus on the environment. He's interested in the environment, he's interested in war, and in doing so, out comes an environmentalist thing, out comes an anti-war theme, but they aren't exactly stated in the normal way, which I think bears out in his films. If you look at, say, Porco Rosso, much as the main character himself may say better a pig than a fascist, and much as Miyazaki clearly is opposed to fascism, there's no big point made of it. Now, this isn't to take the stance that some people would take, which is these movies are apolitical. That would obviously be absurd, because there are politics in them, and he does have a politics. However, I think it's fair to say that his politics are not, I wouldn't say coherent, but they're based on a different system of politics than you usually expect from a person. And perhaps you could say it's similar to the politics of those who consider themselves totally disengaged from politics, but he isn't. He speaks of them frequently, and yet is still like this. In one interview, he mentions how a group which sprung up after Totoro to help a certain set of forests, I didn't do too much research on this, and there was not too much detail provided, is not good because they are environmentalists, because their cause is good, but they're good just because they happen to be good people. And I find this to be a very unique mindset. I suppose a lot of people will claim that they want to just find good people and that there are good people on all sides of the political spectrum. Frankly, I don't agree that there are good people on all sides of the political spectrum, or at least not if you go to certain parts of the political spectrum, there are not good people in certain groups. But Miyazaki's believing this, I think, does bear out in his work. If you watch, say, Mononoke, the way it resolves distinctly shows that not only does Miyazaki accept that this stuff will just happen, but almost implies that even with these massive ideological differences, all these people are deserving of compassion. And I don't think that's wrong, much as I think the way he portrays it and describes it at times in the book is a bit odd. Regardless, this is definitely a worthwhile book if you're interested in learning about Miyazaki. I don't think it is very convincing in most of its arguments, where he does try and present arguments. Sometimes he's just stating how he thinks, in which case it's not meant to be convincing. But in the cases where he is trying to be convincing, I don't know that it is the most convincing. However, if you simply want to look into the mind of Miyazaki from 1979 to 1996, it's a great time. I am very interested in reading his other book, Turning Point, which goes from 97 to 2008, I think it is. I have it over the corner on the bookshelf over there somewhere. And I'm also very interested in, hopefully, someday, someone either translating some other books by other mangaka, animators, directors, and such, or, you know, me actually getting better at Japanese, hopefully, but I don't think I'll get good enough to read that kind of stuff anytime soon, unfortunately. Anyway, this was definitely a worthwhile book, and if you have anything to say about it, talk about it in the comments. As I said, for my, I guess, B side, if you call this the A side of the Sapphisticated Discussions series, my B side is Michel Foucault's Discipline and Punish, and the next book I'll be reading for my A side is... Fuck, I forgot the name. Well, I don't know. Actually, what was it? Let me just go fucking get my notebook. My notebook has the name somewhere. I apologize for this. I made a mistake. I forgot what my next book is.
Isn't it Foucault?
No. I mean, that's the B-side book. I'm talking about the next A-side book.
Okay.
Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl. There you go. That's it. That's the one.
Selfie filming mode?
Huh? Yeah. Why?
You have revealed me to the world.
Do you want me to?
No.
Okay.
I don't not like to.
Ooh, she's in her sports bra. It's hard to control like this. Yeah, okay. Anyways, that is the book I will be reading, and hopefully you'll read it too. Anyways, see you next time. Bye.